In the town of Springfield on The Simpsons, in the middle of the town square, there's a statue of Jebediah Springfield, the founder of the town. On the bottom of this statue is a plaque that reads, "The noblest spirit embiggens the soul." And I absolutely love that. Part of the reason I really like it is because it speaks to me a lot about what Will Fleming, podcaster, is doing. Will's a podcaster and an educator and a parent. He's just bought a house and he's in the middle of lockdown like the rest of us. So he's got a bit of spare time. When you sit down and look at what Will creates, where his aim is to expand your mind by blowing your mind, where he talks to guests each week about different aspects of what they're doing and their personalities and how they tackle everything around them. It's honestly really inspiring. It's really strangely uplifting, and it's an amazing thing to be a part of. So I thoroughly recommend that if you get a chance, check out Please Blow My Mind wherever you get your podcasts from, because they're everywhere. I was really lucky to have Will sit down and chat with me with what was supposed to be a 15-minute conversation and ended up going for well over an hour, because honestly, Will is he is bloody awesome when it comes to sitting down and talking and catching up, and we haven't done that in ages, so it was a lot of fun for me. So enjoy this episode. Don't forget to stick around to the end. All the information is down the bottom in the description as well. Thanks a lot. So how's your family been holding up through it?
Yeah, good, man. I mean, look, I've got to be honest that I think part of the challenge is the world tells us there's a lot of variety in our physical makeup, our mental makeup, and all of that stuff. So you have to kind of preface all these chats with everyone's got a different scenario.
Yeah.
But it's one of the beauties of life, isn't it? It's one of
Yes.
those things that if you look back through deep narrative, that seems to be the problem and the solution. Like take War of the Worlds, for example.
Yeah.
We bet them because of our variety and actually our resilience to the common flu. And I kind of am sometimes hopeful to see this as it happens, like it's like we're an immune system humanity, not the virus we sometimes get portrayed as Matrix and all of that stuff. We're more of an immune system, and we actually need to be a little bit opposite to ourselves, and push and pull. And I mean, all of the ancient symbolism suggests that, right? With the yin and yang and the chaos within type thing. And I kind of like seeing it playing out, because I guess as long as the immune system, like it does in our body, it's supposed to inflame and become aware. But then it has to kind of calm down. And I'm looking forward to seeing that cycle take place, right? We're in a very much a fight or flight zone. And it's a good zone, because some of the study I've been doing recently is in stress and what it actually does to the body. And you get a rise in adrenaline, you get a rise in cortisol, and they're not bad things. They're just bad things if they stay on all the time.
Yeah.
They're like your sun leaving on the power the whole day.
Yes.
It's not a bad thing. Everyone needs to be warm. Everyone needs light. But if it's on all day, all night, guess what? Daddy gets hit with a massive bill. So, look, with all of that said, I kind of feel like my family is the perfect example of that. We have lots of time together, which the world would say is an amazing thing. But the problem with a lot of time together is it's a lot of time together.
Yeah.
And little things become challenges. So I've got two answers. One is it's just bloody amazing to be, having the opportunity to stay home with my family. I do a lot of different things. So I teach remotely, which is great because I'm a digital technologies teacher. Imagine if I couldn't do that, it'd be hilarious. But I've straight on using my digital skill set to make that good and fun, and using my podcast background to actually make sure the other person on the microphone and camera is feeling good. I feel like just because we've clicked on Zoom and everyone can run these things, we haven't really thought through the psychology of what it's like.
Yeah.
Which is why, Paul, you are perfectly suited to also do these Zooms, because you've had years of studying, but also transferring the in-person relationship digitally, and that's a skill.
I hope so. We'll see how it turns out at the end, but I certainly hope so.
Well, no, it's already turning out good from what you've told me.
I've been very happy so far.
And they could always say no. If you're not someone worth talking to, they'll say, "Sorry, dude, I'm busy."
Yeah.
So I think the fact that you've got a network of people who are ready to withdraw some of that for you is a good thing. But on the negative side, it's revealed some holes in my patience.
Yep.
I have been, just because I'm learning about stress and how to reduce it, does not mean it's an effective. Does not mean it always works.
Yeah.
So I like that revelation, that it makes me think that even people in Jacinda and that, who have to portray this level of strength, you can bet your bottom dollar that they're also probably, I don't know if we can swear or not, like, you can beep it out, shitting bricks,
Yeah.
right? Like, and that's a nice thought to have. There's these kind of different levels where everything has to operate at, and that's like parenting is a good example.
Yeah.
Dad Will and Dad Paul are different versions of professional, but
Yeah.
we're in the same shell. But I guess the challenge today is, you might, let's say hypothetically, and probably for me sometimes true, probably for most of us, let's say like our goal is to have a happy, warm home.
Yeah.
And some months get a bit short on money. Let's just say hypothetically, just to give everyone a bit of an out. But you probably have a decision. Do I let everyone know that? Or do I just wear that for a month
Yeah.
and we'll tick it up on the credit card? So let's say that's something like that. I think the challenge is, for the hierarchies of like government, it's so out in the open. We're like children. We're like their children,
Yes.
and they're telling us everything. And that's the overwhelming bit. And I kind of yearn for a bit of a time before where it's like, actually, I'm not a professor of something.
Mm-hmm.
They spent 25 years being professional at making sure the water runs. I don't need to try and have a breakdown of why it works. Just please make it work. And
Yeah.
I'll get busy trying to do what I do to offer value to society.
It must
And I
be a
feel
really
like,
weird position as well, when you're there and like, I'm going to tell you how many people have got the virus and the vaccine, and that there's always going to be people who question it, and that's got to be a hard. And I know my kids are, at least one of them will always question exactly what you tell them. Like it's got to be such a juggling act for them.
yeah. And not, I think a lot of it is just what I was referencing with humanity being a bit like an immune system. We need people to stand up and say, I don't believe in that. I think it's just trying to find that balance and what's influencing that. That's what's kind of annoying everyone, I think, is like, we know enough not to know enough.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to make these really big decisions on, hearsay, and it could be right, but tomorrow it's wrong, because the truth is, probably no one really knows. It's
Yeah.
all educated guesses. Even like the professor who mentors me through my study journey, he's like, half of the studies are wrong. It's like a fact that half of all scientific literature is wrong. But the pursuit is that we keep trying to aim for the 50% that's right. And so it's trying to make an informed decision, which, I think it comes back to those things like gut decisions, Paul. Like, logic seems to sometimes get in the way. And I'm careful how I say it, because I'm not saying just gut feeling your way through. But for example, if there's like, millions of people going one way, well, it's probably not a bad indication that that's okay. And yes, you got to be careful, because sometimes we can be like lemmings, right? But it's also, that's what I was saying at the beginning. It's kind of like, well, look, man, if it all goes down and we made the wrong call, we're kind of all in it together. But the logic bit kicks in for me, especially around the vaccination stuff, where like there's actually a boogeyman there to get us, and that's that bloody COVID itself.
Yeah.
And you can't see it, so it might as well be Freddy Krueger for Nightmare on Elm Street. It haunts you because you don't know, where exactly what it is. You can't see it, but you can feel it, and all of these things. And then that seems to be more scary than actually the potentials of what is going on with vaccines. But again, got to preface it with each to their own. But yeah, I don't even. It's like the free speech argument, right? Like, should you be able to say anything you want regardless? And that's kind of where some people sit.
Yeah.
And others like, no, I've got to stop you. But like, I once had it explained to me that, like, say whatever you want, but you better be ready for a backhand to come at you if it's going to offend.
You can be free to speak, but not free of consequences.
That's right. But we want free to speak and free of consequence. And I feel like we want that with the COVID stuff too, right? I
Yeah.
want to make my decision, but please, I want to be able to travel. I want to all these other things.
Yeah.
And I think we just got to maybe behave a little bit, not in a Orwellian type, you know, line up, but I think there's going to be enough of us who stand up. And I don't think it's a conscious thing. I think it's a more subconscious immune system type thing, where you'll feel a need and you will do that. And so, yeah, I sometimes sit and wonder, what are we, Paul? What are we in this? If you look at
Yeah.
the royal families, and there's the king, the queen, whatever, the court jester, and what role are we? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure I'm master of the latrine half the time. So where you guys are at the moment, are you near any of the outbreak points, any of the places of interest?
We're in Waiuku, which is south of Auckland. So no, but it's a small little remote town in the North Island. So I mean, we're still, I think, 3 streets over from where I live is where Waikato starts.
Are you
so
on the
I'm right
Waikato
on
or the
edge.
Auckland side of the border?
Auckland, yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
So we're still level 4 here, but as you know, I've also been trying to work out. Well, there's not that many changes to level 3 anyway.
No, there's not.
If you don't have to go, you're still supposed to stay home, and that whole level thing just became blurred. It's easier if someone just says you got to stay home. Okay.
Yes, yeah, I totally agree.
But remember, it didn't take us long to bounce back once we got
Yes.
used to those 2 or 3 months or 6 months or whatever it was without COVID. And, I went to a couple big rugby games. It was packed stadiums, kids running around. I kind of feel like that's what I was exploring before with the immune system goes up and it's alert.
Yeah.
So people look at you different. They're looking at you for what they may be, the lofty words like aura. They're scoping you out, right? Are you threat to me?
Yeah.
And at the moment, it's a yes from everything. And it makes sense, right? The inflamed area is the city where you are. So it's like that you've cut yourself, and that's that little red area. And the further you go away from that, it kind of retracts a bit. But as long as in a couple, however long, as long as that comes down again, you can see your neighbor, say hello.
So with your podcast, how many people have you spoken to since this has started? How many episodes have you created since this started?
There's kind of 2 waves of this for me. Last lockdown, I'm doing exactly what you did. I transferred everything digital. I went into full connection mode, right? This lockdown, I haven't. I've had a bank. You'll see I'm in a little bit of a studio now. It's something I built at my house. And I've still got a couple conversations that I recorded pre-lockdown that I'm going to release. But I'm also okay with breaking this vigorous cycle of 1 upload a week, because we're in interesting times. You know? I'm more trying to use it as a reward when I want to have some time away, that I might come and do a bit of recording, stuff like that. So I've only done 2 digital chats. One with a friend of mine, Pat, who runs a podcast called The Department of Conversation. I highly recommend you reach out to have him on your little chat show.
Okay.
And he'll do the same to you. He's doing some fireside chats, just interesting people doing interesting things. And you. And I've thought about reaching out to people, but I'm like, actually, I'm okay at the moment, just sitting on what I'm up to. And I guess, Paul, I'm having a bit of a thought around just like, if I'm going to have a bit of a think, or I'm given the opportunity to plan, what might I do next?
So using it as downtime, essentially, like recovery time.
Pretty much. Yeah. Because normally my week is, I'm always trying to scrape together a podcast so that I can upload, And I've done that now for, 2013. So I guess I'm coming up to 10 years.
Yeah.
In different varieties of what the show is and whatnot. But I mean, I probably have had 300 or 400 chats, and that's not a unique thing because everyone chats with people. But to record an hour of time with somebody has been pretty special, So I guess these downtimes, I get to reflect a bit more on what we're up to, and actually, like, for the last 5 or 10 years, that's been my hobby.
Yeah.
That's been me going to the pub on a Friday, is having a podcast. So the fact that I'm at home, maybe my hobby is just hanging out, and I'm a recent home owner, and gee, that's a story and a half. But
Buying in Auckland,
um,
absolutely.
oh, dude, and I will say that I'm not someone who sits here and says that I saved up when I rags to riches. It's like, no,
Cut
we're
out
lucky
the
to have
avocado
family who are
toast and
able
the
to help.
lattes.
Oh, it's like it's BS. I would love to see a graph or some science around, or an investigation at least, of how many people who are homeowners in the last 10 years have a substantial amount of help from family.
Oh, it would be
Because
huge.
I'm one of those people. And that's the truth. Everyone can say what they want, but man, it is tough to do it without a decent chunk of change from family. So
Oh, yeah.
I promised myself I would always admit that, because otherwise it can look a little bit silly. The irony is that my mortgage payment now is lower than the rent would be
Yeah.
normally on another place. And so that's the gut wrenching thing. That's what makes you believe in like things like hell, because you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Why is it so unfair that most of us can't get in without this kind of help from these previous generations? But anyway, that's kind of another thing. But I potter around the house. It is my art project. If I'm not like trying to screw something in somewhere or bugger around with it, I'm yeah, like, to answer your question, podcasting has taken a side seat, and
Mhm.
I'm thankful of that, because people like you have picked up that online content and filling in. So I sit down and watch a lot of content now, you know, and like you, a couple people reach out, want to chat, and I'm like, yeah, I got time. So
So you're enjoying the lockdown sort of period? Sort of the freedom of the
yeah,
lockdown?
I like it, but I'm an in-person person. I like reading you when I'm looking at you and
Yeah.
looking at your micro expressions and understanding it. I especially like doing that with people who manage me and my bosses. And,
Yep.
that's why I'm an effective husband, because I'm around a lot and I can see and feel what they mean. At least my best guess. The problem I have with lockdowns is my mind starts thinking, what's that person thinking? Who are they?
Yeah.
What are the conversations that I'm not privy to? What happens after we
Yes.
click off the Zoom? And I don't like that. So I have to work really hard at either preempting those things by being extra organized, or just like, keeping in touch. This lockdown has been okay. I think like the last lockdown really got me, because I'm a creative person. I the creativity side. You might do nothing for 5 hours, but
Yeah.
have an inspirational 1 hour
Yes.
and create everything you need. Because the truth is, the 5 hours were like an incubation period. Now,
Yeah.
you can't prove that, because no one can ever see inside Paul Barlow's
Yes.
head. But the outcome is the only thing that I think creatives can hold on to. And so when you're in an environment where people don't really understand that, it just becomes a harder game to play, especially virtually,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know. And so this lockdown, I'm lucky to be in an environment where, 1 year older, I have a few different opportunities ahead of me, and it's more, what would you call it, like a more self-regulating, you know. So as long as the things are being delivered, that's good. Who
Hmm.
cares how you do it?
So do you find then that this sort of conscious switching off at the moment and stepping back and a bit more family time, is that very much a reaction to how you came out of the first lockdown?
Yes, yes. At the end of the first lockdown, I think I had decided I'm going to, the least favorite word in the world, pivot, right? Or at least change I wanted a bit more control,
Hmm.
you know, even though that's a silly kind of term, because what even is that? I'm still seeking that. I'm still seeking to be able to influence the things I can influence and understand why I'm doing it. I'll give you an example. Like in the last year, I've been really studying hard into the world of breathing patterns
Hmm.
that support a more calm state. Now, it's quite a lofty statement, that, but there's this idea that uh, you only have two functions in your body which can be driven manually and automatically. And one of them is breathing, and one
Hmm.
of them is blinking. And blinking probably makes sense because the automatic one
Yep.
is keeping your eyeball, safe or whatever. The manual one is like there's a dust storm,
Yeah.
you know. So I was thinking about breathing, and I was like, that's not such a logical case. Why would we need an automatic version of it, i.e., when you're sleeping?
Yeah.
And why would we need a manual version? And it turns out, and the science is really strong on it, that your manual override is how you influence your body to either upregulate or go into fight or flight, or downregulate, which is this
It
rest and digest,
it makes a lot of
the two
sense.
sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of doesn't for a lot though, because we're one, like it's all based mainly on like this is what I reckon, about an 80-20 rule, right? Like you're supposed to breathe automatically
Hmm.
or outsource that, but it's influenced by your health, it's influenced by your stress level. So if you're more stressed, like if you have like a shitty boss, or constant bad thoughts about yourself, you will automatically be breathing faster, right? And that will
Yeah.
automatically be putting you into a more heightened state. And people know what a heightened state is. It's what we feel around COVID, you
Yeah.
know. So that's good short term, but it's not good long term. And I guess where I've been really fascinated is like, how can you take manual overdrive? What are the tools you need to take manual overdrive? What is it doing, and how can it be sustained? So, like I guess there's two things I've been up to. Is one, learning the science around more slower breathing patterns. So firstly, breathing more through your nose, because your nose is this filter, and we
Hmm.
won't go down the kind of too deep rabbit hole in it, but like, guess what it captures? Pathogens and
Yeah.
all of that stuff, and it gets stuck in all the mucus, and you spit it out. And so if you're breathing through your mouth a lot, you're missing that. So you're more susceptible to infection and all of those different things. But also, breathing through your nose is something that helps not get sleep apnea and snoring and choking
Hmm.
yourself at night. So it's been really interesting and fulfilling actually to understand that. And those are things that I've also been using for me. It's not always successful, Paul, because sometimes you just get really angry. Things that happen and you just full on. But you'll be surprised if you sit down and uh, just simply sit by yourself, or not, but you can do it at meetings. You can just slow your breathing down to about 5.5 seconds in, 5.5 seconds out. And if you measured your heart rate, you'd see it coming down. If you measured your blood pressure, you'd see it coming down. And it's all pretty logical because you're not preparing to go into battle
Yeah.
if you breathe slow. So it's like the breath controls the mind, and then the mind tells the body through chemicals what to do.
Yeah, I
You
suppose
know,
your breathing
um,
rate changes, that changes the oxygenation rate of your blood supply, and that obviously controls a lot of what's happening within
absolutely,
your body.
absolutely. And when you breathe faster, we're all aware of exactly what that is. We just don't tie it to breathing faster.
Hmm.
You're hyperventilating. So think about people when they're hyperventilating, they're really jittery.
Oh, yeah.
And what actually happens is you blow off too much carbon dioxide. So, and that signals to the body that there's danger. So it constricts everything. It
Hmm.
constricts your field of vision. It constricts your blood vessels. It pumps your heart faster. And I mean, that's what chronic stress is.
Yeah.
It's that all the time. And it's like horrible outcomes, bro. Like like this is no BS. The outcomes if you have chronic stress is basically um, poor cardiovascular health, right? So
Yes.
that's like the number one killer, heart attacks, but also Alzheimer's,
Yes.
because when your body is in a panic state, first of all, not enough oxygen can get to your brain to flow, but also when you're calm is the only time there's a cerebral fluid, this fluid that clears out the junk in your brain. not like junk, like leftover proteins and
Hmm.
stuff. And if that can't get cleared out, it clogs up these neural pathways, and it forms like it kills the brain, and that's Alzheimer's and dementia, and it's crazy shit. And so you sit down, and you think, okay, how can I influence that? Well, I can, and this is going to sound wacky, bro, but do some study on it, and it's all legit. I can tape my mouth at night so that I only breathe through my nose, and that will help me slow my breathing at night. It'll stop me choking on, like people who snore,
Hmm.
mouth breathing, snoring, and then they choke themselves, and that's bad news. And you'll be less dehydrated, which is, that if you wake up with a dry mouth, you're probably a mouth breather.
Hmm.
And you'll have, better sinuses. They'll be clearer because the nose is being used. So you didn't really ask me about all that stuff, but I find it so fascinating.
That's right. Worst comes to
And
worst, I
I'm
can cut it all out if I need to. It's the best thing about being in
yeah.
charge
So
of anything.
that's exactly. So that's what I've been up to, man. I've just been trying to like figure out what it actually is, and then how to explain it, and how to do it in a way that helps me. I like the idea that if I'm less, if I'm having less time, especially as a bigger person, right? We're big dudes, me
Yeah.
and you, and we know that as the years go on, we've got to control that. We've got to
Yeah.
work out better strategies to, um, not have that body running so hot, not be sweating all the time or panicking, because that gets us, and the stats all show it. So it's like trying to find a narrative actually that makes sense to people, and it's actually really empowering, Paul. Like people can control most things, but they can't control how you breathe. That's why I
Yeah.
think it works for you, the Queen, and someone in jail, right? No one can,
Yeah.
only you control how you breathe.
Have you ever seen somebody having a full-on panic attack?
Yep,
First thing they do
yep.
when
Heard of it.
ambulances show up is, yeah, it's oxygen. That they put them in a mask and get them to
Mm,
start breathing properly and to calm them down.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to in the past recommend the bag,
Yes. Yeah, the paper bag. Can't get
because
bags like that anymore.
that no, and that was based around, they moved away from that science, but the science is still strong. They were trying to restore carbon dioxide,
That makes
because if
sense.
you
Yeah.
think like you blow all that carbon dioxide off, so your body, so adding more oxygen into your body wouldn't actually be doing that much. But when you can restore the carbon dioxide, it's more like a yin yang, it gets back to normal. And in fact, that's why it's really important to try and slow that breathing. I think the stat I saw was, historically, maybe our ancestors collectively, 500 years ago, people breathed at about a 4 to 10 breaths per minute. All right, so that's about 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. Our modern world, about 80% of us breathe at about, I think it's something like 10 to 18 breaths a minute. That's the kind of standard for
Okay.
humanity. And I think it's quite clear that if you could probably tie that to some of these mental health crises, but it's like this hidden feature that people think it's like, and don't get me wrong, it's not a one-stop shop, but bro, it is a very important foundation,
Yeah.
like you look at the SAS and they've got 3 rules of survival. It's not food and it's not water, it's air. There's like 3 weeks of no food, 3 days no water, but 3 minutes no air. And so when all turns to shit, they go back to that rule of threes.
Wow.
It's
I didn't
pretty it's
realize
pretty
that.
amazing. But we don't do that, eh?
No.
We do something like we put shelter at the top, and
Hmm.
second to that is probably like food
Yeah.
and or nourishment, and then we put talk therapy somewhere up there, but not in crisis. Those are further down the list.
Yeah. Yeah. You're
You got to
absolutely
organize
right.
your, but we just don't talk about it, and I think that's why. I don't know if it will be my life's work. It feels too hard, but I just, maybe on podcasts and stuff
at,
I
at,
can
at our
explore
age,
this
I don't know if we
more.
should be worrying about legacy just yet. It's a scary thought, actually. Sort of going, oh, what have I left behind in the world? Like it sounds like the work that you're doing is really helping you process everything that's out there at the moment that's coming your way. Oh, there's a lot being thrown at everyone right now.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think if we're open, we'll find that thing for us that makes sense. And I guess what I mean by that, because I don't want it to sound too kind of lofty, is like if you're looking around at what the environment is offering you, you know, and tying that into your own personal experience, you might find something. You know, I mean, it's a perfect time to change because you can always blame it on COVID later.
Yeah, true.
You know? And actually,
I like that
people
idea.
wouldn't. Yeah, they wouldn't. You wouldn't be remembered bad because you'd be like, oh, you're the one who tried that thing and failed during a pandemic.
Yeah,
You must have had some other issues, which is probably true, right? But if you know, it's wartime at the moment, you know, collectively with that virus, it's not
yeah,
peacetime. So why not try and push that boundary? In fact, it's probably going to help to just keep you with something small that you can do to make change, you know, like there's a cause and effect of what you're doing, Paul. You know, 1 o'clock today we were going to catch up.
yeah.
Okay, good. I can bank my soul on that. And then I will just do this and then we'll worry about what's next, as opposed to, oh, you know, what am I going to do today?
Yeah.
Know? So
and that was a big part of it for me. It was like beginning of the week, I'm like, oh, another weekend at home, can't go out, don't have anyone here. I don't want to spend another day on the couch watching Netflix. I want to catch up with people, but I want to make sure that it's a catch up that means something. So that was my plan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a win-win-win as far as I'm concerned. You've got content, you know, to help grow your own story professionally and you know, personally, but also it's fun as we're doing it. And you know, there's probably little clips in here you can clip together, and that becomes awesome content. And if people keep a keen eye, they'll learn something about how they can share their digital story with the world.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. If they keep a really keen eye, they'll notice that I've actually been changing the background as well between every video. We'll see if they pick up on that. So everybody has, I don't know if you can see it, I think, what have I got in the corner there? It's a Cartman. I'm not wearing my glasses because the ring light reflects off it. There's a different character in that corner every video.
Yeah, look, there's some deep wisdom in that, right? Like it has to be fun for you.
Yeah.
And I think where we're at the moment is it becomes too much about everyone else.
Yeah.
This content chat is for people, but it's also for you, and you get these meta little Easter eggs.
Yes.
I mean, that's what I miss about DVDs. There's no more Easter eggs.
I know.
You can't find something by accident, like the making of, or you know, little
commentaries,
little things, little tidbits.
I miss commentaries.
Like, I'm so lucky they released the box sets of like this old Superman films before today.
Yeah.
Because you know now Dick Donner's dead, and like he does all those commentaries on all the films. They did the Superman 2 recut with the Marlon Brando footage, and it's like we're so lucky to have had that. But where do you find it now in the plethora?
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's too
I think
much. It's too
Disney
big.
does it, don't they? Disney Plus does commentaries on some of their stuff as an extra feature. But right. it's one streamer out of a dozen. Like it's
yeah. It feels, and it's too hard. It feels like an extra click. It's my problem with everyone saying that everything's on our website. And what do you mean? It's a black hole. It might as well be a black hole, and you think that it's easy to navigate, but it's 4 menus in.
Yeah.
And people only want to click. I've already typed in a web address. Don't make me work harder.
I want what I want on front screen right now.
There's those old sayings like the customer's always right. Yeah, because they won't buy from you. Or, you know, it's even like for my podcast, I've had to consolidate the idea that if I don't upload every week, I might lose listeners.
Yeah.
And I've decided that's okay, because they're not going to turn around and go, if you will, for not loading a podcast. They're just going to move their attention somewhere else.
Exactly.
And so, you know, I'll come back. I'll be, you know, do maybe a slightly different take on things, or would have learned something just through thinking and talking to people like yourself. And who knows, you might pick up some new type of engagement.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah. So let's switch gears a little bit. Your skip rope at the
Mm.
moment, because you're skipping, is it 100 skips a day?
I'm doing uh, I'm doing 100 days of skipping,
Okay.
and I'm only using my nose to breathe. So
Okay.
I've given myself the challenge of at least a minute non-stop of nasal breathing skipping. It's actually quite challenging, but my goal would be at 100 days that I could maybe do 5 or 10 minutes nasal only.
Okay.
So the idea is that I'm going to be breathing in a really healthy way,
Mm-hmm.
like a way that's not panting. You know, I could
Yeah.
grunt through 5 minutes probably if I
Oh, yeah.
wanted to, but I want to reach a level of control where you're doing something quite hard, but you're breathing in a way that is like calm. You know, so I like the juxtaposition of it. I like the opposite nature of like it's not grunt. It's like you've got there not by accident, you know. So yeah, I mean, it's just probably not on such a detailed level. At a top line, it's just like, can you do an activity every day for 100 days? And
How are
that's
you
what I'm
finding it so
trying to
far?
do.
Because obviously skipping is something that you could do indoors, but you probably shouldn't. And weather-wise, it
Yeah.
could cause you a few issues. If like the storm the other day.
Yeah, yeah, I was out there skipping in the rain. It felt kind of beautiful in some ways, Paul. Like, I don't know. I like ideas where there's like not too many people else doing it at that time.
Yeah.
I like trying to put those niche umbrellas over things. Um, but no, it's a look. I'm big, and it's challenging to
Yeah.
get that rope around this body. But I like that challenge. You know, I'm constantly thinking I'm going to snap something because I'm probably too fat to be skipping like that. But you know, I kind of feel like, well, the body's had a bit of a shock. It's now knows that I'm going to be doing this, and that's why I've also given myself a realistic goal. Like a minute of doing something doesn't sound much, but it is if you like. At the end of the week, I've done minimum 7 minutes of
Yeah.
skipping. Who does 7 minutes of skipping in the last 10 years,
Yeah.
right? And okay, you can pick a hole in it and say, well, you didn't do it all in a row, but
Yeah.
I will, and I'll do it. I'll get there, but you'll be able to trace back every day to see how long it really takes to build that level of not fitness. It's not fitness,
It's
you know. It's
control.
like something else. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
it's a level
That's
of
right.
control. The thing that I love every time I
Yeah.
see your videos is you look really excited to be doing it. There's a genuine joy for it. And like for me, skipping is something I did in school because it was what you did during PE, and you had those horrible plastic ropes that you could be whipped with and leave marks. But
Yeah.
to actually see you out there doing it, you have so much fun with it, and it's something that comes across really simple. You know, it's a skipping rope. We all know how to use it, but you really enjoy it, and
Yeah.
that's really cool to sit down and watch.
Well, I appreciate that, bro. Like I haven't had too much feedback apart from, you know, a few likes and stuff, but it's hard for me because I'm trying to keep my mouth shut. And
Yeah,
sometimes I'm really keeping my mouth shut. So it looks a little bit like sometimes, you know, I've got the face on because you're like actually trying to breathe
yeah,
through your nose. But I have been having fun with it. And you're
cool.
right, it is something like kind of primal.
Yeah,
Like you hit the jump. You know, you hit to jump for things. If you saw a snake, you jump.
yeah,
And so I like this idea that I even like the idea of I don't know exactly what's happening, but there might be something in our bodies. You know, it's registering movement. It's recalibrating. You know, the brain and the organs they kind of float. Maybe they needed to be pushed against each other, and you know, it's the same thing that happens when you breathe properly. You use your diaphragm, and it pushes and
yeah,
squeezes against your heart, and it pushes out. And you know, this cavity fills up and expands. And I'm really big on like do something to feel something
yeah,
and not just up here, you know, like if you're feeling a bit down and out, like stop eating for a day, pending you don't have an eating disorder. See how you feel when you're hungry. You know, I guarantee you, if you go 24 hours just by drinking water, you will sit down and eat that nice piece of steak or whatever it
yeah.
is, and life will feel brilliant. You know, it's just so obvious that people in our over smart world think that's we're full of shit, you know. But I'll tell you what's full of shit, as far as I'm concerned, is like expecting an outcome where you're like giving yourself negative feedback loops getting triggered on everything, pissed off at that, and then wondering why we're looping back around as these non-optimal beings.
Mm.
You know, it's like, yeah, your body's built to like do things with it, and I just think it's like, yeah, you need probably a 2 meter squared space to flick a rope around you, and I'd love you to have a go, man, because
I
it's
don't know
it
that I've got a
sucks.
2 meter space for it, to be honest. I just sort of looking at
Well,
maybe my front yard, maybe.
yeah,
Because it's a
yeah.
fenced off area, but then like my backyard is currently flooded, and I don't know if you could hear it before, but there's pumps next door pumping out the unit that's down there
Oh,
because it was underground and got flooded in the storm.
jeepers.
And my front yard's a shared driveway, but out the other side's a shared driveway. But yeah,
Yeah.
always sounds like something fun to do. Right,
Well, you are allowed to exercise, right? You can
totally,
walk somewhere
yeah.
and just find the 2 meter spot of concrete.
Oh,
Anyway, you'll look crazy, but you'll
oh,
be the man.
I look crazy anyway, so it's fine. I'm fine with looking crazy, and I don't know that many people around here, so it's not going to matter. Last big question for you: what's the best advice you can give people to help them get through what's obviously a tough time for everybody?
Yeah, if you can breathe through your nose like you don't have a deviated septum or something, uh, kind of chronic up there, explore taping your mouth at night. So what I'd say to people is sit in front of the TV, put a piece of tape over your mouth and see how it feels. Do that for a couple hours every day, and then have a go at doing it at night. Now, the urge to breathe is the most powerful urge of all of them. So you're not going to suffocate. Okay, you're actually more likely to suffocate if your mouth breathing because you're going to have sleep apnea.
Yeah.
That's suffocation. You're going to drop your oxygen level so low that you're going to give yourself, a raft of BS. Restore nasal breathing is nature's gift, and I'd say it doesn't matter what I say, what anyone else says. If you're having 8 hours a night of bad sleep, you can expect those things to come back and haunt you. So be brave, do some Googling, tape up that mouth. I know that sounds weird, but it is. We live in weird times, Paul.
I really want to thank Will for joining me on what turned into a really epic conversation. Initially, when I pitched these talks, it was about 15 minutes long is sort of what I was aiming for. And as you can tell, we went a little bit over that, and there was a whole bunch of stuff that we cut as well. If you want to check out Will's podcast, you can find the links below in the description. Honestly, some of the stuff that he comes up with is so inspiring, and he gets so many people from different walks of life who have got so much to give. You definitely need to check it out if you get a chance. So check out the links down below and go have a listen. Until next time, thanks very much for joining me, and hope you enjoy the next episode.